Fuck you. Yo también. You wanna live?
John Rambo has traded the battlefields of Vietnam and the jungles of Burma for a quiet life on his family ranch in Arizona. However, his peace is shattered when his surrogate niece, Gabrielle, disappears in Mexico while searching for her father. John must unleash his lethal skills one last time to dismantle a brutal human trafficking cartel in a bloody and final quest for justice.
Come home, but I never got lost till here. The only family. But I will forever.
Protect me forever.
¿Qué te digo? Le da pelar. Lléguenle. Pero las voy a encontrar. Por esta.
¿Quién eres tú? ¿Qué quieres?
They're back from her father's.
Yeah, I was giving...
I'm gonna hurt you real bad.
Nunca te han cumplido.
Okay, I think you can... Okay.
Jale a todas horas. No paren de jalar hasta que les digan que...
¿Andas perdido, viejito?
Let her go.
Rambo. And my coming here has made it very console her. Cámelo como en marcaditos. Bien. A ver.
¡Go! ¡Vete! ¿Qué haces? ¡No!
Gabrielle, come here. It's all right.
entonces nadie vio nada. Fue él. Fue él. No, no, no. A mí me valen verga.
¡Está bajo tierra!
Fuck you. No, también. You wanna live?
Hey guys, today we are taking a deep dive into the final chapter of a man who has seen enough war for 10 lifetimes and yet somehow finds himself digging one more trench. We are going to break down every brutal moment of Rambo Last Blood as the legendary soldier brings the fight to his own backyard. If you had a good time with this, a like and a subscribe is a free way to help me keep making more. We start our story in the middle of a torrential downpour because apparently Mother Nature decided that John Rambo had not seen enough mud in his life. John is helping the local authorities search for some hikers who were clearly not checking the weather app before they decided to climb into a flash flood zone. He is riding through the woods on a horse looking like a classic cowboy while the wind howls like a wounded animal. He finds a woman trapped in the rising waters and manages to pull her to safety, but he cannot save everyone, and the weight of that failure hangs on him like a heavy wet blanket. He heads back to his ranch, which is a sprawling piece of land that he shares with an old friend named Maria and her granddaughter Gabrielle. John has basically become a father figure to Gabrielle, and he spends his days training horses and his nights trying to ignore the screaming voices of the men he killed decades ago. He is taking a whole pharmacy of pills just to keep the demons at bay, and he has spent a suspicious amount of time digging an entire network of tunnels under the ranch. Most people get a hobby like knitting or birdwatching, but John decided that building a subterranean labyrinth of death was the way to go.
Gabrielle is getting ready for college, but she has a nagging question about her biological father who walked out on her years ago. She tells John she wants to go to Mexico to ask him why he left, and John gives her the most intense stare down of all time. He tells her that he knows the world, and that the world is a dark and jagged place, where people do things that make no sense just to be cruel. He basically gives her the ultimate spoiler alert for how dangerous Mexico can be, but Gabrielle is young and hopeful, which is usually a death sentence in a movie like this. She sneaks away anyway and drives across the border to meet up with her friend Giselle, who supposedly found her father. The atmosphere in Mexico is a sharp contrast to the quiet Arizona ranch. The air is thick with dust, and the noise of the city is a constant hum of engines and shouting. Gabrielle finds her father, and the meeting is a complete disaster. The guy is a total jerk who tells her that he never cared about her and that she means nothing to him. It is a soul-crushing moment, and Gabrielle leaves in tears, wanting nothing more than to go home. Giselle suggests they go to a club to blow off some steam and forget about the heartache. This is the moment where every viewer is shouting at the screen because we all know that clubs and action movies are just waiting rooms for kidnappers. Giselle leads her into a trap, and before Gabrielle can even process the betrayal, she is drugged and handed over to a group of men who work for the Martinez brothers. Back at the ranch, John realizes Gabrielle is missing, and he wastes no time. He heads to Mexico with nothing but a photo and a very particular set of skills. He tracks down Giselle and confronts her in a scene that is dripping with tension. The sound of the wind through the dusty streets is the only thing you can hear as John stares her down. He figures out that she sold Gabrielle out, and he forces her to take him to the club. John walks into the den of lions like he owns the place, but he is older now and his reflexes are not what they used to be. He gets cornered by dozens of cartel thugs in an alleyway. The sound of the rain hitting the pavement mixes with the sound of the Martinez brothers laughing as they beat John within an inch of his life. Hugo and Victor Martinez are the leaders of this operation, and they decide to let John live just so he can suffer knowing what they are going to do to Gabrielle. They scar his face and leave him bleeding in the dirt. It is a brutal reminder that even a legend like Rambo is made of flesh and bone. He is rescued by a woman named Carmen, who has been tracking the cartel ever since they killed her sister. She takes him to her home and nurses him back to health. The house is quiet and smells of herbs and old wood as John recovers. He spends days in a haze of pain and medication, but the fire inside him is starting to burn again.
Once he can stand on his own 2 feet, John starts preparing. He knows he cannot just walk into the front door again. He needs to be the hunter and not the prey. He finds out where Victor keeps his favorite girls, and he plans a surgical strike. The sound of the knife being sharpened on a whetstone is a rhythmic scrape that sounds like a countdown. John moves through the cartel house like a ghost. He is silent and efficient. The only sound is the soft thud of bodies hitting the floor and the occasional muffled gasp. He finds Gabrielle, but she has been through a living nightmare. She is barely conscious, and her spirit is completely broken. John carries her out of that hellhole and starts driving for the border. The drive is a somber affair, with the hum of the engine being the only soundtrack to their escape. John tries to tell her that she is safe now and that they are going home to the ranch where everything will be fine. He talks about the horses and the sunshine, but Gabrielle is fading fast. By the time they cross into Arizona, she has passed away in the passenger seat. The silence in the truck is deafening. John brings her body back to the ranch, and the grief he feels is a physical force that seems to shake the very foundations of the house. He buries her on the hill, and Maria leaves because the ranch no longer feels like a home. It feels like a tomb. This is where the movie shifts gears from a tragedy into a full-blown war film. John knows the cartel will come for him. He wants them to come for him. He spends the next few days transforming the ranch into a massive kill zone. The sound of saws cutting through wood and metal clanging against metal fills the air. He is welding spikes and setting up tripwires with a level of precision that would make an engineer sweat. He is pouring gasoline and setting up claymore mines in the tunnels he spent years digging. He is essentially playing a very lethal version of Home Alone. He even takes a moment to sit on the porch and wait for the dust clouds on the horizon that signal the arrival of the Martinez brothers. When the cartel finally arrives, they come in a fleet of black SUVs and they are armed to the teeth. They think they are coming to finish off an old man, but they are actually walking into a meat grinder. The sound of the car engines roaring as they crash through the ranch gate is the opening bell for the carnage. John leads them into the tunnels because he knows every inch of that dark, cramped space. The first few members of the cartel are taken out by simple traps. A spike through the foot here, a swinging blade there, and the psychological terror begins to set in. The sound of the cartel members screaming in the dark is a jagged contrast to John's cold silence. He is using a bow and arrow to pick them off one by one, and the whoosh of the arrow is followed by the wet thud of it hitting home. The tunnels are filled with the smell of gunpowder and the metallic scent of blood. John is like a shadow moving through the walls. He triggers an explosion that collapses a section of the tunnel, and the roar of the blast is so loud it vibrates in your chest. The cartel members start to panic and fire their weapons blindly into the dark, which only makes John's job easier. He uses their own fear against them. He leads Victor Martinez deeper into the maze while he systematically dismantles his men. There is a sequence where John uses a shotgun to blast a guy through a wooden wall, and the sound of the splintering timber is like a crack of thunder. The violence is visceral and unapologetic. John is not just trying to kill them, he is trying to make them feel the pain they inflicted on Gabrielle. He uses a series of remote detonated explosives to turn the ranch house above them into a fireball. The ceiling groans and dust falls from the rafters as the world above turns into an inferno. The sound of the fire roaring is a constant backdrop to the final showdown. Victor is the last one left alive, and John corners him in the center of the tunnel system. John pins him to a wooden wall with several arrows through his limbs.
limbs. The sound of the arrows piercing the wood is a sharp series of thuds. John then walks up to him and tells him that he wants him to feel his heart break. In one of the most graphic moments in action movie history, John uses a knife to cut into Victor's chest and literally pulls his heart out. The sound of the tearing flesh and the final gasps of the villain are brutal and final. John walks out of the burning ruins of his ranch and sits on the porch. He is covered in blood and sweat, and his breathing is heavy and ragged. He is wounded, but he is still standing.
The sun starts to rise over the Arizona landscape, and the orange light reveals the total devastation of the ranch. The smell of smoke lingers in the air, and the silence of the morning is a stark difference from the chaos of the night. John writes a letter, or at least narrates his thoughts, about how he has lived in a world of death for too long. He has tried to come home, but home is a place that no longer exists for him. He is a man defined by the wars he fought and the people he lost. He mounts his horse and starts to ride away into the distance as the credits begin to roll. The film ends with a montage of scenes from all the previous Rambo movies, showing the long and bloody journey of a character who became a symbol of the forgotten soldier. It is a somber and powerful conclusion to a franchise that defined a generation of action cinema. John Rambo is a man who was forged in the fire of conflict and could never truly find a way to cool down. His story reminds us that the scars of war are not just on the skin, but are etched into the soul of the warrior. We see in him the heavy burden of those who carry the weight of the world on their shoulders, often at the cost of their own peace and happiness. His ultimate sacrifice was not his life, but his ability to live among those he fought to protect. There is a profound sadness in the realization that some heroes are destined to remain in the shadows forever, defined by the violence they were forced to master. It is a testament to the strength of the human spirit that even in the face of total loss, one can still find the will to stand up and fight for what is right. This movie is a brutal and uncompromising look at the consequences of a life lived by the sword, and it serves as a fitting end to a legendary character. It strips away the glamour of action movies and leaves behind a raw and gritty story about grief and revenge. Sylvester Stallone delivers a performance that feels weary and authentic, bringing a sense of closure to a role he has inhabited for nearly 40 years. What do you think about the way John Rambo's journey ended? And do you believe a soldier can ever truly come home after the war is over?
The early scenes of the movie focus heavily on the relationship between John and Gabrielle. Their bond is built on a foundation of shared quietude. We see John teaching her how to ride, and the sound of the horse's hooves on the dry Arizona dirt is a rhythmic and calming sound. John finds a sense of purpose in protecting this young girl that he never found in the service. He is a man of few words, and most of his communication with her is through small gestures and long silences. He repairs her saddle, and he watches over her like a silent guardian. The lighting in these scenes is warm and golden, which creates a false sense of security before the storm of the second act. John's trauma is shown through his night terrors and the way he reacts to sudden noises. The sound of a car backfiring or a heavy door slamming sends him into a state of hyper-vigilance. He is a man who is always scanning for threats, even when he is at his most peaceful. When Gabrielle decides to go to Mexico, the tension between her and John is palpable. He doesn't shout because he doesn't have to. His voice is a low, gravelly rumble that carries the weight of 1,000. He knows how the world works and that people are capable of unspeakable things. This is the gentle sarcasm of a man who has seen the worst of humanity and is trying to explain it to someone who still believes in the best. Gabrielle's journey across the border is filmed with a handheld camera that creates a sense of unease. The sound of the city in Mexico is a chaotic mess of horns and music and shouting, which contrasts with the silence of the ranch. Her meeting with her father is a masterclass in emotional brutality. The sound of his cold, dismissive voice is more painful than any physical blow. He tells her he only left because he didn't want a life with her mother and that he has no interest in her. The way the sound of the traffic outside the window seems to get louder as her world falls apart is a great piece of audio storytelling. Giselle's betrayal is signaled by the shift in the music at the club. The bass becomes a thumping heartbeat that feels oppressive. When Gabrielle is drugged, the world becomes a blur of colors and distorted sounds. The voices of the men around her are muffled and deep like they are coming from underwater. This is the moment where the movie turns into a horror film. John's arrival in Mexico is the start of his transformation back into the Praetor. He is trying to be a diplomat at first, but he is clearly out of his element. He is a blunt instrument in a world of shadows. The confrontation in the alleyway is a pivot point for the character. The sound of the rain is a constant hiss as the Martinez brothers mock him. They see an old man, but we know they are looking at a ticking time bomb. The beating he takes is visceral, and you can hear the crunch of the boots on his ribs and the wet slap of the punches.
Carmen's role in the movie provides a much-needed moment of reflection. Her house is a sanctuary where the sound of the outside world is replaced by the soft crackle of a fire and the clinking of teacups. She tells John about her sister, and their shared grief creates a bond that is stronger than words. She is the one who helps him realize that he cannot fight this war the old way. He needs to use his surroundings and his history to his advantage. The scenes of John recovering are filled with shots of him looking at his old military gear and his knives. The sound of him pulling his combat knife from its sheath is a sharp metallic ring that signals the return of the warrior. He begins to plan his rescue of Gabrielle with a focus that is terrifying to behold. The rescue mission is a sequence of high tension and minimal dialogue. John enters the brothel where the girls are kept, and the sound of the floorboards creaking is enough to make you hold your breath. He moves through the house with a lethal grace that suggests his body remembers how to kill, even if his mind wants to forget. He finds Gabrielle, and the sound of her weak, raspy breathing is a heartbreaking reminder of what she has endured. He carries her out, and the sound of the car tires on the gravel as they speed away is a desperate, frantic noise. The journey back to the border is a long sequence of emotional weight. John talks to her, and the sound of his voice is the only thing keeping her anchored to the world. When she finally stops breathing, the silence that follows is the most impactful sound in the entire film. It is a void that John will fill with fire. The preparation of the ranch is where the action first focus really takes over. We see John digging into the earth, and the sound of the shovel hitting the dirt is a heavy, repetitive thud. He is building a tomb for the men who killed his niece. He creates traps that are designed to maim and terrify. He sharpens pieces of rebar and welds them into jagged spikes. He sets up jars filled with black powder and ball bearings. The sound of the welding torch is a bright hissing flare in the darkness of the tunnels. He is turning his home into a weapon. This section of the movie is satisfying because it shows the tactical mind of a soldier at work. He isn't just angry, he is calculating. He knows the Martinez brothers will come with an army, and he prepares for every possible entry point. When the cartel finally arrives, the sound of their heavy trucks and SUVs is a mechanical roar that breaks the silence of the ranch. They are arrogant and loud, which is their first mistake. They enter the house and find it empty, and the sound of their footsteps echoing through the rooms creates a sense of impending doom. John lures them into the tunnels, and the real carnage begins. The first trap is a classic, a swinging log with spikes that hits a guy with a sound like a tree trunk snapping. The tunnels are a maze of death, where every corner holds a new nightmare. John uses a remote control to detonate a claymore mine, and the sound of the explosion is a sharp, ear-splitting crack that is followed by a rain of dirt and debris. The use of sound in the tunnel fight is incredible. You hear the cartel members whispering in fear, and the sound of their heavy breathing as they realize they are trapped. John's bow makes a subtle twang every time he fires, and the sound is followed by a wet thud and a scream. He is like a phantom in the dark. He uses a flare to light up a room, and the sudden hiss of the burning chemicals reveals a room full of dead men. The psychological impact on the remaining cartel members is clear, as they start to fire their guns at nothing. The sound of the gunfire is deafening in the enclosed space, and it creates a sense of total chaos. John remains calm throughout the entire ordeal. He is the master of this domain. The death of Victor Martinez is the climax of the violence. John traps him in a room and uses a series of arrows to pin him to a wall. The sound of the arrows hitting the wood is a final rhythmic series of thuds. John's speech to him is delivered in a low, terrifying whisper. He wants Victor to feel the same fear that the girls felt. The act of John cutting into his chest is shown in graphic detail, and the sound of the knife through the bone and muscle is a wet, tearing noise. It is a moment of pure animalistic revenge. The sound of John pulling out the heart is a wet squelch that marks the end of the conflict. The aftermath of the battle is a quiet and somber affair. John walks out of the tunnels, and the sound of his boots on the stairs is slow and deliberate. He sits on his porch, and the only sound is the wind blowing through the trees and the crackle of the fires burning in the distance. He looks out over his land, and you can see the toll the night has taken on him. He is a man who has finished his final mission, but he has lost everything in the process. The sound of the birds chirping as the sun comes up is a stark contrast to the violence of the night. It is a new day, but for John Rambo, the war will never truly be over.
The final monologue by John is a reflection on his life as a soldier. He talks about the world of death and how he tried to leave it behind. The sound of his voice is tired and full of a deep, unshakable sadness. He knows he can never be the man he was before the wars. He is a part of the landscape now, a ghost haunting his own life. The sound of the horse as he rides away is a steady, fading beat that carries him into the sunset. The movie ends on a note of quiet dignity for a character who has lived a life of loud and terrible violence. The legacy of the Rambo series is one of the most enduring in action cinema. It started as a story about a veteran trying to find his place in a country that didn't want him, and it ended as a story about a man who realized his place was always on the battlefield. The evolution of the character from the misunderstood soldier in First Blood to the vengeful protector in Last Blood is a fascinating arc. The movie doesn't shy away from the brutality of his nature, but it also shows the deep humanity and love that drives him. He is a man of contradictions, a healer who is best at killing, and a protector who brings destruction to those he loves. The action sequences in Last Blood are some of the most creative and visceral in the entire franchise. The use of the ranch and the tunnels as a battleground allows for a different kind of combat than we saw in the jungles of the previous films. It is more intimate and more personal. Every trap and every kill feels like a direct response to the pain John is feeling. The film manages to be both a high-octane action movie and a deep character study. It is a rare combination that makes the movie stand out in a crowded genre. The sound design of the film deserves special mention for its role in creating the atmosphere. From the subtle sounds of the ranch to the explosive noise of the battle, every audio detail is carefully crafted to pull the audience into John's world. You feel the impact of every punch and the heat of every blast. The music is also a powerful tool, using themes from the original films to create a sense of continuity and nostalgia. It reminds us of where John came from as we watch where he is going. The ending commentary on the film often focuses on its extreme violence, but that violence serves a narrative purpose. It is a reflection of the world that John Rambo has inhabited for his entire life. He doesn't know how to fight any other way. The movie asks us to consider the cost of that violence and whether it is ever truly justified. It is a question that has haunted the character for decades, and one that the audience is left to ponder as the credits roll. Rambo: Last Blood is a powerful and fitting farewell to one of the most iconic heroes in movie history.
As we look back on the entire journey of John Rambo, we see a man who was always searching for a home that he could never truly find. He was a warrior in a time of peace and a man of peace in a time of war. His story is a tragedy, but it is also a story of resilience and the enduring power of the human spirit. He is a reminder that there are some who are called to stand in the gap and protect the innocent, even if it means they must lose themselves in the process. John Rambo is a legend, not because of the number of people he killed, but because of the depth of his heart and his unwavering commitment to his own code of honor. The film captures a sense of finality that is rare in modern franchises. It feels like a true ending, a closing of the book for a character who has earned his rest. The image of John riding away into the desert is one that will stay with fans for a long time. It is a classic Western ending for a classic action hero. He is riding into the unknown, but he is doing it on his own terms. He has settled his debts and he has found a measure of peace, even if it is a peace bought with blood. The movie also serves as a reminder of the power of practical effects and stunts in an era of digital spectacle. The traps and the explosions in the final battle feel real and dangerous because they were created with a focus on tactile detail. You can feel the weight of the metal and the heat of the fire. It is a testament to the skill of the filmmakers that they were able to create such an immersive and visceral experience. In conclusion, Rambo: Last Blood is a movie that stays true to its roots while also pushing the character into new and challenging territory. It is a dark and bloody film, but it is also a deeply emotional one. It is a story about a man who refused to back down and who fought to the very end for what he believed in. John Rambo may be gone from our screens, but his legacy will live on as one of the most powerful and enduring icons of American cinema. The wind down of this epic tale leaves us with a sense of profound respect for the journey we have witnessed. John Rambo represents the silent struggle of many who have returned from the darkness of conflict, only to find that the world they fought for has changed in ways they cannot understand. His story is an inspiration to anyone who has ever felt like an outsider or who has had to fight for their place in the world. He shows us that even in our darkest moments, we can find the strength to stand up and do what is right. He is a symbol of the warrior spirit that exists in all of us, the part of our soul that refuses to give up, no matter the odds.
This film is a raw and powerful testament to the enduring legacy of a character who has become a part of our cultural fabric. It reminds us that there is a hero inside everyone, waiting for the moment when they are called to action. Whether it is fighting a literal battle or simply standing up for what we believe in, we can all learn something from the grit and determination of John Rambo. His final chapter is a beautiful and brutal reminder that some legends never truly die. They simply ride off into the sunset, waiting for the next time they are needed. The movie is special because it manages to bring a sense of closure to a story that spans nearly 4 decades. It is a rare feat in cinema to see a character evolve so completely from their first appearance to their last. Rambo: Last Blood is a visceral, emotional experience that challenges the audience to look at the cost of violence and the nature of heroism. It is a film that will be remembered for its intensity, its heart, and its unflinching look at the life of a soldier. What do you think is the ultimate lesson of John Rambo's life, and how will his story influence future generations of action films?